I never thought my 9-year-old daughter would become my hero. But that night, as I lay on the cold kitchen floor with blood trickling from my split lip, I heard something that changed everything. The faint sound of Lily whispering from upstairs. "Grandpa David, it's me, Lily. I need help. Daddy hurt Mommy again, and this time it's really bad." My heart stopped. Through the ringing in my ears from where Richard had struck me, I could barely make out her tiny voice floating down from her bedroom. How long had she been watching? How much had my precious little girl seen? Just minutes before, I had been trying to explain to Richard why dinner was 15 minutes late. The meeting at work had run over, traffic was terrible, and I'd rushed home as fast as I could. But nothing I said mattered to him. Nothing ever mattered when he was in one of his moods. "You're useless, Sarah," he had screamed, his face twisted with rage. "I work all day to provide for this family, and you can't even have a hot meal ready when I get home." The dinner plates went flying first. The crash of breaking china mixed with his shouting as mashed potatoes and gravy splattered across the kitchen walls. I had stood there, trembling, trying to make myself smaller, hoping his anger would burn itself out like it sometimes did. But not tonight. Tonight was different. Tonight, something in his eyes looked darker, more dangerous than I'd ever seen before. "Look at this mess!" He grabbed my arm so hard I knew there would be fingerprint bruises tomorrow. "You're going to clean every bit of this up, and then you're going to make me a proper dinner." When I tried to pull away, that's when his hand connected with my face. The slap sent me stumbling backward into the counter. But he wasn't done. His fist came next, catching me just below my ribs, doubling me over as pain shot through my body. "Richard, please," I gasped. But he was beyond hearing me now. He shoved me hard, and I went down, my head hitting the kitchen cabinet on the way to the floor. The world spun as I tasted blood in my mouth. From where I lay, I could see his expensive dress shoes pacing back and forth, and I knew I had to stay down, stay quiet, and wait for the storm to pass. That's when I heard her voice. My brave, brilliant Lily speaking into her tablet upstairs. "I have videos, Grandpa. Lots of them. Daddy doesn't know I've been recording when he hurts Mommy. I have pictures, too, of the bruises he gives her." My blood ran cold. Videos? Pictures? How long had my baby been carrying this burden? How many nights had she hidden in her room, watching her father destroy her mother? "Mommy tries to hide it," Lily continued, her voice steady despite what must have been overwhelming fear. "She puts makeup on the bruises and tells everyone she's clumsy, but I see everything. I see how scared she gets when Daddy comes home angry. I see how she shakes when he yells." Richard had moved to the living room, probably to pour himself another drink, giving me a moment to process what was happening upstairs. My daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, had been secretly documenting the abuse I'd been too afraid and ashamed to report myself. "I tried to protect Mommy tonight," Lily whispered, and I could hear the tears in her voice now. "I came downstairs to ask Daddy to stop, but Mommy saw me and shook her head. She always tries to protect me, but who's protecting her?" The kitchen floor was hard and cold beneath me, broken dishes cutting into my palm as I tried to push myself up. But in that moment, despite the physical pain, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. My daughter had found a way to reach my father, Colonel David Bennett, the one person Richard actually feared. "Please come help us, Grandpa. I don't know what else to do." As I listened to Lily's desperate plea echoing through our house, I realized that everything was about to change. My little girl had just become our lifeline, and she didn't even know it yet. 3 years earlier, I thought I was the luckiest woman alive. Richard Hayes was everything I'd dreamed of in a husband. Successful, charming, and from one of the most respected families in town. When he proposed after just 6 months of dating, I said yes without hesitation. I was so young, so naive, so completely blind to what was coming. The Hayes family welcomed me with open arms, or so I thought. Richard's mother, Patricia, would smile and tell everyone how delighted she was that her son had found such a sweet girl. His father, William, would pat Richard on the back and joke about how he'd better treat me right. They lived in a massive house on the hill, the kind of place I'd only seen in magazines, and suddenly I was part of their world. "Sarah's going to fit right in," Patricia would say at their dinner parties, her perfectly manicured hand resting on my shoulder. "She's exactly what Richard needs, someone who understands her place in the family." At the time, I thought she meant I belonged. I didn't realize she meant I should know my place beneath them. The first few months of marriage were like a fairy tale. Richard would bring me flowers for no reason, take me to expensive restaurants, and tell me how much he loved coming home to me. I had quit my job to focus on being the perfect wife, just like he'd suggested. "Why stress yourself with work when I can take care of everything?" he'd said. It seemed romantic then. Now I know it was the first chain in my prison. Little Lily was 6 when the changes started becoming obvious, though looking back, the signs had been there all along. Richard had always been particular about things. The way I dressed, how clean the house was, what I cooked for dinner. But after Lily's 6th birthday party, something shifted. "The house was embarrassing today," he said that night as I was washing dishes. "My mother noticed crumbs on the counter, and my sister said the bathroom upstairs wasn't spotless. You made me look bad in front of my family." I had cleaned that house from top to bottom for 2 days straight, but apparently it wasn't enough. Nothing ever was. "I'm sorry," I said, scrubbing the plates harder. "I'll do better next time." "You will," he said, and there was something cold in his voice I'd never heard before. "Because I won't be embarrassed like that again." The criticism became daily. The way I folded his shirts was wrong. The dinner was too cold, too hot, too bland, too spicy. I walked too loudly. I talked too much at his work events. I wasn't social enough with his family. Every day brought a new list of my failures, and every day I tried harder to be perfect. The Hayes family watched it all happen and called it Richard helping me improve. "He just wants the best for you, dear," Patricia would say when she'd catch Richard correcting me in public. "He's teaching you how to be a proper Hayes wife. You should be grateful he cares enough to guide you." When the shouting started, they called it passion. When he began grabbing my arm too tightly during arguments, they said he was just stressed from work. And when I started showing up to family gatherings with bruises I claimed were from being clumsy, they nodded sympathetically and suggested I be more careful. The isolation happened so gradually I didn't notice until it was complete. First, Richard would get upset when I wanted to visit my father. "He doesn't approve of me," Richard would say. "Why do you want to hurt me by choosing him over me?" Then my friends started seeming less important as Richard filled our weekends with Hayes family activities. Phone calls to old college friends became selfish and taking time away from our marriage. By the time Lily turned 7, I realized I had nowhere to turn and no one to call. Richard controlled every penny we had, monitored every phone call I made, and his family had convinced everyone, including me, that any problems in our marriage were my fault. "You're so lucky to have Richard," his sister would tell me at family dinners. "Not every man would be so patient with someone who needs so much guidance." I started believing them. I started thinking I really was clumsy, really was too sensitive, really was failing as a wife and mother. The woman who had once dreamed of becoming a nurse, who had graduated college with honors, began to disappear completely. But even in my darkest moments, I never stopped protecting Lily. I thought I was hiding the truth from her. I thought my baby girl was safe from seeing the ugly reality of what our home had become. I was so wrong. Children see everything. I learned this truth the hard way when Lily was 7, and it broke my heart into a million pieces. I had been so careful, or so I thought. Whenever Richard's voice started rising, I would quickly send Lily to her room to play or do homework. When his hands left marks on my arms, I wore long sleeves. When his words cut deep enough to make me cry, I waited until she was asleep to let the tears fall. But children are smarter than we give them credit for, and Lily was always the brightest light in any room. The first time I realized she knew something was wrong, we were making breakfast together on a Saturday morning. Richard had left early for golf with his father, and for a few precious hours our house felt peaceful. Lily was standing on her little step stool, carefully cracking eggs into a bowl, when she looked up at me with those big, knowing eyes. "Mommy, why do you get so scared when Daddy's car comes in the driveway?" My hands froze on the pancake batter I was mixing. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "You always get this look on your face," she said, tilting her head the way she did when she was thinking hard about something. "Like when we watch scary movies and the monster is about to come out. Your whole body gets tight and you start moving really fast around the house." I forced a smile, but my heart was racing. Daddy just likes things to be neat and tidy when he gets home from work. I want to make sure everything is perfect for him. Lily nodded, but I could see in her eyes that she didn't believe me. 7-year-olds might not understand adult problems, but they know when something doesn't feel right. Over the next few months, I started noticing how Lily would watch us during dinner. Her little fork would pause halfway to her mouth when Richard would criticize my cooking. She would shrink back in her chair when his voice got sharp. And sometimes when he would playfully grab my wrist to make a point about something I'd done wrong, I would catch Lily staring at his hand with a worried expression. The night everything changed for her was a Tuesday in October. Richard had been having a bad week at work, which meant everything at home was wrong. The house wasn't clean enough, dinner wasn't good enough, and I wasn't grateful enough for all his hard work. His shouting had been getting louder each night, and I was running out of excuses to send Lily away from the kitchen. That night, I thought she was safely upstairs in her room when Richard exploded over burnt rolls. I had forgotten them in the oven while I was helping Lily with her math homework, and by the time I remembered, they were black around the edges. "Are you kidding me, Sarah?" he screamed, throwing the burnt rolls across the kitchen. "I ask for one simple thing, a decent meal after working 10 hours, and you can't even manage that." I was scrambling to clean up the mess, apologizing over and over, when I heard a small voice behind me. "Daddy, please don't yell at Mommy. She was helping me with my homework. It's my fault the rolls got burnt." My blood turned to ice. Lily was standing in the kitchen doorway in her pajamas, her favorite stuffed bunny clutched tight against her chest. Her chin was trembling, but she was trying to be brave for me. Richard spun around, and for a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Maybe shame, maybe surprise that he'd been caught. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that cold anger I knew so well. "Lily, go to your room right now," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "But Daddy, Mommy didn't do anything wrong. I asked her to help me with math, and we both forgot about the rolls. Please don't be mad at her." My 7-year-old daughter was standing up to her father to protect me. The bravery in her small voice made me want to cry and run to her at the same time, but I couldn't move. I was frozen between terror for what Richard might do and amazement at my daughter's courage. "Lily," I said softly, "go upstairs, honey. Everything's okay." But as she reluctantly turned to leave, I saw her look back at me with an expression that was far too old for her face. In that moment, I realized my daughter had been carrying the weight of our family's secret for longer than I'd ever imagined. That night, after Richard had gone to bed, I found Lily sitting by her bedroom window, still awake. "Mommy," she whispered when I tucked her in, "are you and Daddy going to be okay?" I wanted to tell her yes, wanted to promise her that everything was fine, but looking into those worried eyes, I couldn't lie anymore. "We're going to figure it out, sweetheart. But no matter what happens, you and I are always going to be okay." She nodded and hugged me tight. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, baby girl. More than you'll ever know." What I didn't know was that my brave daughter had already decided she wasn't going to wait for us to figure it out. She had started making plans of her own. The year Lily turned 8 was when I truly understood what trapped meant. Richard's control had grown beyond criticism and shouting. It became a web so tight I couldn't see any way out. It started with the credit cards. One morning, I went to buy groceries and my card was declined. Embarrassed, I called Richard from the store parking lot, thinking there must be some mistake. "I canceled your cards," he said casually, like he was discussing the weather. "From now on, You'll ask me for money when you need something. I'm tired of wondering where every penny goes. But Richard, how am I supposed to buy food for the family? What about Lily's school supplies? You make a list, Sarah. You plan ahead. Maybe this will teach you to be more responsible with our money. Our money. It had never been our money, I realized. It had always been his money, and I had just been allowed to use it until he decided I couldn't. The Hayes family thought this was wonderful. Richard is such a good provider, Patricia told me at their weekly family dinner. He's teaching you the value of money. My generation understood these things. Men handle finances, women handle the home. But handling the home became impossible when Richard's standards reached new heights. The house had to be spotless every second of every day. Lily's toys couldn't be visible anywhere except her bedroom. Dinner had to be ready exactly at 6:30, not a minute before or after. The laundry had to be folded and put away immediately after drying. I don't understand why this is so difficult, he would say when I inevitably fell short. Other wives manage just fine. Maybe the problem is that you're not trying hard enough. The physical violence started small. A shove when I was in his way, a grip on my arm that lasted too long when he was making a point. The first time he actually hit me, it was over a phone call from my father. Dad had called while Richard was at work, just checking in like he did every few weeks. We talked for maybe 20 minutes about normal things, how Lily was doing in school, the weather, his garden. When Richard came home and saw the number on the caller ID, his face went dark. Why was your father calling here? He just wanted to see how we were doing. He misses us. He doesn't trust me to take care of my own family. That's what this is really about. Richard's voice was getting that dangerous edge. He thinks I'm not good enough for his precious daughter. That's not true, Richard. He likes you. He just wants to stay in touch. Don't lie to me. The slap came so fast I didn't see it coming. The sting across my cheek was nothing compared to the shock. He had never hit me before. Not like that. You will not take calls from him when I'm not here, he said, his voice calm again as if nothing had happened. If he wants to speak to you, he can do it when I'm home to supervise. I should have called my father right then. I should have packed Lily and left that night. Instead, I found myself apologizing for upsetting Richard and promising to do better. The Hayes family's response to my first visible bruise was predictable. Men get stressed, Richard's sister explained when she noticed the mark on my wrist at church. The important thing is that you learn from these little disagreements. Little disagreements. That's what they called it when their son and brother grabbed me hard enough to leave fingerprints on my skin. But 8-year-old Lily was watching everything with different eyes. I started noticing how she would suddenly appear in doorways when Richard's voice got loud, how she would offer to help me in the kitchen during tense dinners, how she began asking careful questions about why I was clumsy so often. Mommy, do you want me to get you more makeup? She asked one morning after a particularly bad night had left a bruise on my cheekbone. What do you mean, sweetheart? For covering up the purple spots, I saw you putting extra makeup on your face this morning. Do you need more so it doesn't show? My 8-year-old daughter knew I was covering bruises. She had figured out that the accidents I claimed to have weren't really accidents at all. The weight of that knowledge settled over both of us like a heavy blanket. I'm okay, Lily. Sometimes mommies just bump into things. She looked at me with those wise, sad eyes and nodded. Okay, Mommy. But if you need help with anything, you can tell me. I'm good at keeping secrets. Secrets. My baby girl was already learning to keep secrets about her own home. That night, as I lay in bed listening to Richard's satisfied snoring, I made a promise to myself and to Lily. Somehow, some way, I was going to find the strength to get us both out of this nightmare. What I didn't know was that Lily was making her own promises, and unlike me, she was already figuring out exactly how to keep them. I had no idea that my 9-year-old daughter had become a detective in her own home. For months, while I was focused on surviving each day, Lily was quietly building a case that would save both our lives. It started with her tablet. the one Richard had bought her for her birthday, thinking it would keep her busy and out of the way. What he didn't realize was that he had given Lily the most powerful tool she could have asked for. I discovered her secret completely by accident. I was putting away laundry in her room when I accidentally knocked her tablet off her desk. When I picked it up, the screen was still open to a folder labeled School Project. But the photos inside weren't for any school assignment. They were pictures of my bruises. My hands shook as I scrolled through dozens of photos. My black eye from 2 months ago, the handprint bruises on my arms from last week, the split lip from when Richard had lost his temper over burnt toast. Each photo was dated and had a little note written by Lily. Daddy hit Mommy because dinner was late. Daddy pushed Mommy down for talking back. Daddy squeezed Mommy's arms really hard. But the photos were just the beginning. There were videos, too. Somehow, my brilliant daughter had figured out how to record audio and video from her bedroom. The files were labeled with dates and times, and as I listened to one with headphones, I heard Richard screaming at me from 3 weeks ago, calling me worthless and stupid while dishes crashed in the background. "Lily?" I called softly, and she appeared in her doorway looking guilty and scared. "I'm sorry, Mommy. I know I wasn't supposed to be recording, but I had to. Nobody believes that Daddy hurts you, and I thought if I had proof..." I sat down on her bed and pulled her close to me. "How long have you been doing this, sweetheart?" "Since I got the tablet. At first, I was just taking pictures when you had bruises, but then I figured out how to record the sound from my room when Daddy gets angry. I hide the tablet under my pillow and press record." My heart broke and swelled with pride at the same time. This little girl had been carrying such a heavy burden, trying to protect me in the only way she knew how. "Lily, this was very dangerous. What if Daddy had found out?" "I was careful, Mommy. I only recorded when my door was closed, and I always deleted the files from the main screen and put them in hidden folders. I learned how to do it from YouTube." YouTube. My 9-year-old had been researching how to document abuse on YouTube. "I also looked up things about helping mommies who get hurt by daddies," she continued. "The video said I needed to tell a trusted adult, and I needed to have proof. So I've been collecting proof." She showed me everything. Months of carefully documented evidence that painted a clear picture of escalating domestic violence. But what amazed me most was what she had done with all this information. "I found Grandpa David's phone number in your old address book," she said quietly. "I've been wanting to call him, but the internet said I should have lots of proof first, so he would believe me and know how to help." "You want to call Grandpa?" "The website said military people know about helping families in danger, and Daddy always gets weird and quiet when Grandpa's name comes up, like he's scared of him or something." She was right. Richard had always been nervous around my father, Colonel David Bennett. Dad's presence seemed to remind Richard that there were still people in this world who wouldn't tolerate his behavior. "I've been practicing what to say to him," Lily continued. "I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget anything important. Do you want to see?" She pulled out a notebook filled with her careful handwriting. She had written down dates, times, and descriptions of every incident she had witnessed or recorded. She had noted patterns in Richard's behavior and even researched legal terms for what was happening to us. "Lily, you are the bravest, smartest little girl in the world, but this is a lot for someone your age to handle." "I know, Mommy, but somebody has to help us, and all the grown-ups who are supposed to help don't even know what's happening. Grandpa David would help us if he knew the truth, wouldn't he?" I looked at my daughter, this incredible child who had been quietly working to save us both, and realized she was absolutely right. My father would move heaven and earth to protect us if he knew what Richard was really doing. "Yes, sweetheart. Grandpa would definitely help us." "Then can I call him? Tonight?" I thought about it for a long moment. Once we made that call, there would be no going back. Everything would change. But as I looked at the evidence my daughter had so carefully gathered, I realized that change was exactly what we needed. "Yes, Lily. Tonight we call Grandpa David. Little did I know that Richard's worst night was about to become the moment that set us free. Thanksgiving at the Hayes family mansion was supposed to be perfect. Patricia had spent weeks planning the menu, the decorations, the seating arrangements. Everything had to be flawless for their annual display of family unity. What she didn't plan for was my daughter's courage changing everything. The call to my father had happened 3 days earlier. Lily had been incredibly brave, speaking clearly into the phone while I sat beside her, my heart pounding with each word she spoke. "Grandpa David, I need you to help my mommy. Daddy hurts her, and I have proof." My father's military training kicked in immediately. He asked careful questions, listened to Lily's recordings, and looked at her photos through a video call. When he saw the evidence my 9-year-old had collected, his voice became steel. "Lily, you did exactly the right thing. I'm going to handle this, but I need you and your mom to act normal for just a few more days. Can you do that?" She nodded solemnly. "Yes, sir. That's my brave granddaughter. Help is coming." Now, sitting around the Hayes family's enormous dining table, I was struggling to keep my composure. Richard was in his element, playing the perfect son and husband for his parents and siblings. He carved the turkey with flourish, made jokes about football, and even put his arm around me for photos. "Isn't Sarah looking lovely today?" Patricia announced to the table. "That yellow dress is so becoming on you, dear." It was the only dress I owned that covered all my bruises completely. Lily sat quietly beside me, picking at her food. She had been unusually calm all week, and I wondered if the weight of our secret was becoming too much for her. But when I looked at her, I saw something in her eyes that I recognized: determination. The explosion came, as it always did, over something small. I had been helping Patricia serve dessert when I accidentally brushed against Richard's chair. His coffee mug tilted slightly, spilling a few drops on the white tablecloth. "Sarah!" The change in his voice was instant and terrifying. "Look what you've done! Can't you watch where you're going?" The entire table fell silent. Patricia rushed to get a napkin, making nervous comments about how these things happen. But Richard wasn't done. "This is exactly what I deal with every day," he continued, his voice getting louder. "She's completely useless. Can't cook properly, can't clean properly, can't even walk across a room without destroying something." "Richard," his father said uncomfortably, "it's just a little coffee." "Just a little coffee?" Richard stood up, towering over me as I tried to clean up the small spill. "This is my life. Living with someone who can't do anything right. Do you know what it's like coming home to this every day?" I felt the familiar terror rising in my chest. His hand moved toward me, and I instinctively flinched, which made him angrier. "Look at that. She acts like I'm going to hurt her, like I'm some kind of monster." That's when Lily stood up. "But you do hurt her, Daddy." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Every person at that table turned to stare at my 9-year-old daughter, who was standing with her tablet in her hands. "Lily, sit down," Richard said, his voice dangerously quiet. "No." My daughter's voice was steady and clear. "I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of watching you hurt my mommy and everybody acting like it's normal." She looked around the table at all the shocked faces. "You all think he's such a good husband and father, but you don't know what he's really like. You don't see what happens when nobody else is around." "Lily, that's enough," Patricia said sharply. "Children shouldn't speak about grown-up matters they don't understand." "I understand more than you think." Lily held up her tablet. "I have videos of him hitting her. I have pictures of all the bruises he gives her. I have recordings of him screaming at her and calling her terrible names." Richard's face had gone white. "Give me that tablet right now." "No." Lily backed away from him. "I already sent everything to Grandpa David. He said he was going to make sure you can't hurt us anymore." The room erupted. Richard lunged toward Lily, but I stepped between them. Patricia started demanding to know what lies we had been telling people. Richard's father was shouting about family business staying private. But through all the chaos, I heard the sound I had been hoping for, my father's voice at the front door. "Where is my daughter?" Colonel David Bennett walked into that dining room like he owned it, followed by 2 police officers and a woman I would later learn was a victim's advocate. His presence immediately changed the energy in the room from chaos to controlled authority. "Sarah, Lily, step away from him," Dad commanded. Richard tried one last desperate play. "This is all a misunderstanding, Colonel Bennett. Sarah and Lily have been telling stories." "I've seen the evidence," Dad cut him off. 9 months of documented abuse. Video, audio, photographs, all carefully cataloged by my granddaughter because the adults who should have been protecting her mother failed to do their job. He looked around at the Hayes family with disgust. "You all knew. You all saw the signs, and you chose to look the other way because it was easier than holding your son accountable." The police officer stepped forward with papers. "Richard Hayes, you're being served with a restraining order. You need to stay at least 500 feet away from Sarah and Lily at all times." As Richard was escorted out, still protesting his innocence, Patricia turned to me with venom in her eyes. "This family gave you everything, and this is how you repay us?" My father's voice was ice cold. "This family gave her nothing but bruises and trauma, and it's over now." Lily slipped her small hand into mine as we walked out of that house for the last time. "We did it, Mommy," she whispered. "We're free." 6 months later, I barely recognize the woman I used to be. As I look in the mirror before my first day of nursing school, I see someone I haven't seen in years. Myself. The bruises are gone, the constant fear has faded, and for the first time since I was 22 years old, I'm making decisions about my own life. "Mommy, you look beautiful," Lily says from my bedroom doorway. She's holding her backpack, ready for her own first day at a new school. We moved 3 towns over to live closer to my father, and Lily couldn't be more excited about the fresh start. The months since Thanksgiving have been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, therapy sessions, and rebuilding our lives from scratch. Richard fought the restraining order at first, with his family hiring expensive lawyers and trying to paint Lily's evidence as fabricated and coached. But 9 months of documented abuse don't lie, and Judge Martinez saw right through their attempts to discredit a 9-year-old girl's courage. "Your daughter showed remarkable bravery and intelligence," the judge had told me, after Richard accepted a plea deal that included anger management classes, community service, and a permanent restraining order. "She saved both of your lives." The Hayes family tried one last desperate move to maintain their reputation. Patricia actually showed up at my father's house, demanding that I stop this nonsense and come home to work things out. Dad handled that conversation exactly the way I expected. "Mrs. Hayes, your son is a domestic abuser, and your family enabled his violence for years. Sarah and Lily will never be in danger from him again. You need to leave my property now." We haven't heard from any of them since. Therapy has been the hardest part of healing. Dr. Rodriguez, our counselor, helped me understand how the abuse had changed my thinking, made me doubt my own worth, and convinced me I deserved the treatment I received. She also helped Lily process the trauma of witnessing violence and carrying such a heavy secret for so long. Lily showed signs of what we call parentification, Dr. Rodriguez explained to me. "She felt responsible for protecting you, which is a burden no child should carry. But she's incredibly resilient, and with proper support, she'll continue to thrive." And thrive she has. My daughter amazes me every day with her strength and wisdom. She's made new friends at school, joined the drama club, and even started a kindness club where kids talk about helping others who might be in trouble. Last week, something happened that showed me just how much Lily has grown. We were at the grocery store when she noticed a woman with a black eye standing in the cereal aisle with her young son. The woman was nervously checking her phone while the little boy clung to her leg. "Mommy," Lily whispered to me, "that lady looks scared like you used to look." I watched as my daughter approached the woman carefully. "Excuse me," she said politely. "Are you okay? My mommy and I had to get help from some bad people once, and there are good people who can help if you need them." The woman looked startled, then knelt down to Lily's level. "What kind of help?" Lily pulled a card from her backpack. one Dr. Rodriguez had given us for the domestic violence hotline. These people helped us when someone was hurting my mommy. They're really nice, and they know how to keep people safe. Later, as we were loading groceries in the car, the woman approached us. "Thank you," she said simply. I called the number. Someone is coming to help me and my son today. I hugged Lily tight as we drove home. "You know what you did today? You might have saved 2 lives. Just like Grandpa David saved us," she said matter-of-factly. Starting nursing school feels like reclaiming the dreams I had buried years ago. My father offered to pay for everything, but I insisted on taking out student loans. "I need to do this myself, Dad. I need to know I can take care of Lily and myself." "You already proved that," he said, smiling. "But I understand. Independence is important." As I walk Lily to her new school this morning, she takes my hand and looks up at me with those bright, brave eyes that saved us both. "Mommy, do you think other kids who are scared like I was will know they can ask for help too?" "I hope so, sweetheart. And if they do, I hope they're as brave as you were." "They can be," she says, with the confidence of someone who has faced the worst and come out stronger. Everyone can be brave when they need to be. They just need to remember that there are always people who will help if they ask. My daughter is right. There are always people who will help. You just have to be brave enough to reach out to them. And sometimes, that bravery comes from the most unexpected places. Sometimes it comes from a 9-year-old girl with a tablet and the courage to speak the truth when no one else will. We're not just survivors anymore. We're free. We're strong. And we're helping others find their courage too. This is our new beginning, and it's beautiful.